Recording
Okay.
and and then we can just go ahead and welcome everybody. So hi Matt and Joy. Welcome to um our casual conversation today on digital accessibility. Joy, do you want to talk a little bit about who you are and then I'll introduce myself and then we can just start chatting?
Sure. Perfect. So I'm I'm Joy Mistovich and I'm the Education Department Assistant and Digital Accessibility Specialist at the Butler Institute of American Art in Youngstown, Ohio, and I'm deeply passionate about the accessibility and inclusivity aspect and also providing the opportunity for disabled and non-disabled individuals to experience the visual art in an inclusive space as much as possible. And I'm also currently in the tail end of working on my second master's program at Ohio State in art education and museum education.
Awesome. And I'm Megan Feitz. I am the executive director of Art Possible Ohio. We are the state wide service organization on arts and disability. Joy also failed to mention she is one of our board members at Art Possible Ohio. And she came to me a few weeks ago, which is why you just probably heard about this event not too long ago, to said she wanted to have a conversation on digital accessibility. And um, just as a celebration of what is available and how far we've come, and then as a way to talk about perhaps how far there is to go. So we have put together, actually mostly Joy has put together a few conversations to get this time together rolling. But we don't have to stick to these questions. We just can, and anybody who's here can throw out other questions and we can just see where the conversation takes us today. So we are starting a little bit late, so we still need to end at around 3 o'clock, but I think that actually gives us plenty of time to have a good talk. Matt, since you're one of the few here, did you want to introduce yourself? Because you're very passionate about this topic, and I think it'd be great if Joy learned a little bit about who you are. Yeah.
I'm happy to. My name is Matt Swift. I'm a local filmmaker and artist within the Central Ohio area, but I've also worked at the Ohio State University where I'm a comm officer and also digital accessibility evaluator that's trained and certified to do web and other digital content evaluation, but also have worked with Art Possible Ohio for years to help with various programming and support and other things. And I myself am a disabled artist. So thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, Joy, do you want to kick it off with one of our questions?
Sure, I have the questions pulled up, but we don't have to specifically stick to them if something else comes up. So, let's see. The first question that I have is tell about a memorable story or event related to accessibility slash inclusion. And and if you want to go first, matter. Uh, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Do you mind repeating the question one more
Oh,
time?
I'm
I
sorry.
apologize.
Sure.
That's
No
okay.
problem. That's okay. Um, tell about either a tell either a memorable story or event that's related to accessibility and inclusion.
Well, there is a lot of those. Um, I mean, it's oh man, and I don't want then I would take all of Megan's examples. So, I don't want to do that. Um, I think that probably one of the most memorable things that I could highlight that most people won't know about is that Ohio State University has a conference every year that they bring people together and talk about things around digital accessibility, and it's open for most people to attend so they can find out more about the different laws that are out there, the different resources that people can activate to get accommodations and other kinds of things that are there. And they do work very hard to make sure that like all the content is provided in an accessible manner as possible. So, and that's all run through the ADA office through OSU and Scott Listener's team there. So.
Oh, that's a really awesome thing though. And that's so cool too with the the Ohio State connection too. That's super awesome. So one experience I'd have to say related to accessibility and inclusion would have to be was at least the beginning of the story. I mean, this part of the story. So it started in 2017 when I attended the National Federation of the Blind convention in Orlando, which is the largest gathering of blind people in the United States. So between about 2,000 to 3,000 people attend yearly. And so while I was at the convention, they have a large exhibit hall with at least over 100 exhibitors or more between the state affiliates, because the NFB, they have affiliates in every single state, and also a lot of other exhibitors. So in 2017, I heard about it's called IRA. So it's a Unique Assistive Technology Service. It's an acronym for Access to Information Remote Assistance. And basically, it's a smartphone or desktop app that connects blind and low vision individuals, or also those with and without disabilities, to highly trained, remotely located visual interpreters who provide instant access to visual information. So I was extremely curious about learning more about this technology. So after reading a lot of articles and doing more research, I decided to join and become an IRA Explorer, which means everyone in the IRA community is referred to as an explorer, because accomplishing tasks, there's no limit to what types of tasks and can be accomplished. So the most incredible story that truly changed my life was when shortly after becoming an IRA Explorer, I'll never forget the time that I decided to take a tour through the Butler for the first time independently and on my own terms. And coincidentally, someone who I connected with, she was a visual artist herself. And well, both of my parents were art teachers. Well, my dad passed away a few years ago in 2019, but I'd always loved attending museums and other cultural institutions. But this experience was different because I was just able to freely navigate the galleries in the Butler and just explore so many more of the visual elements of the artworks and gain that instant access to information. So it was unforgettable.
And you've been an IRA lover ever since, right, Joy?
Right, since
You're always on IRA
2017.
list.
So
Um, that's a very moving story. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I think, I'm an administrator in this for my organization, so we do our best to provide a lot of access. But something that I'm really proud of is this year's Accessible Expressions Ohio reception, because for the first time, and Accessible Expressions Ohio is our statewide art exhibition, and it opened up at Cincinnati Art Museum. And by chance, the two individuals on this call with me are both artists in that exhibition this year. But we were able to provide the most accessible reception that we've ever provided, working with and collaboration with Cincinnati Art Museum. And we were able to provide Braille labels and booklets for all the art pieces, some tactile 3D printed artwork of the 3D pieces. We had an audio describer on hand. And as part of our award ceremony, as well as an ASL interpreter on hand, and as part of our award ceremony, we had tactile and Braille printed logos. We had 50 artists with disabilities and their artwork featured at the opening reception. And we did our best to make sure that the space was as clear as possible, pending a bunch of bodies that are wandering around, making sure that it was wheelchair accessible. And we also had a quiet space, although I'm not sure not everyone knew about it. So communication probably could have been a little bit better around that for individuals who might have been overstimulated or just needed a break. There was also seating placed throughout the gallery to make sure individuals who wanted to just hang out and check out some artwork in that way were able to do so. And Cincinnati Art Museum has a visual description tour via an audio app too that they offer for certain pieces in the collection. So I was pretty proud of that. As someone who's experienced or becoming more experienced with using some technology or just being grateful for it, and then losing your hearing quite rapidly in one ear and affecting my interactions and ability to take in information. Last year, I attended the LEAD conference and found quickly that the reverb from the mics was affecting the tube that is in my ear and actually making it really difficult to hear things. And so I had to use my earplug in order to kind of mitigate that, and was super grateful for the captions that were just provided in every single presentation. I didn't have to ask anybody. I didn't have to move my chair. I was just able to get the information in a different way and in just as effective way. So that's my story.
Yeah, that's awesome too. Definitely. Let's see. Okay. So the next question is, how's your disability experience either positively or negatively impacted your daily life? In other words, describe either a positive or negative experience regarding a digital or physical accessibility issue that was most memorable or caused you to advocate for DEAI principles.
I'm happy to go first again. This is Matt Swift
Sure,
again.
that's fine.
I have to do this on a daily basis. I am working with people to fix these problems. So there's a lot of different things out there, but from a personal perspective, I've had several times to advocate for myself in various ways, and sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it doesn't. Like it can be as simple as working for a large institution. They do computer refreshes on a regular basis, and so every 3 to 4 years you get a new computer system. Well, historically, every 4 years, I have to retrain Dragon Speak all over again because even though they are trying to capture everything that's on my computer and make sure it gets updated, when they hand me a new machine, it's not, the material is not there. And I have to spend months getting myself back up to the kind of speed that I'm able to work at to do my job effectively because of the different softwares that I use to be able to do it regularly. On that same fact, like, they have people have contracts with computers manufacturers, and suddenly, they decide we'll go with a cheaper manufacturer, so then the computer's not as good. Maybe it's larger and you got to carry it. I already have special bags that carry my machine around with me that I had to purchase myself. So then I had to argue for, hey, I need this machine to be able to do this, because a lot of accessibility technology is very processor heavy. Like it can use a lot of your computer system. And so, just having a small computer, you also have to have a lot of memory and a lot of processing power. And so I had to recently advocate for that as well. So that it would work with all of my systems, still run everything I needed to do, but in a small enough package that then I wasn't adding extra weight that I had to carry around with me on a regular basis. So it's a negative experience in the fact that there's this negative thing where you have to stand up for yourself because it might not go the way you want. But I was very easily able to put together a proposal for what I needed, talk to all the people I needed to do. I had to take on the onus of knocking on all the doors myself, but because I've been doing this for over 20 years, I got what I needed in the end. They have approved getting the machine that I need, and it's gonna here probably arrive in the next month or so. So.
Well, that's definitely right. At least it worked out and right a lot of challenges. So it's kind of, well, not exactly a similar situation, but it's somewhat ironic. So prior to having my job at the Butler, it'll be hard to believe. Well, 3 years in November for this November that I've had my job, but before that, after after working for IRA and then things changed, but then I got the other aspect was extremely inaccessible when I decided to apply for this job as a web accessibility tester for this company based in Canada. Um, it's called Fable, and their slogan was they're trying to provide accessible ways to test their websites. I mean, not their websites, but other companies that they contract with, and everybody that had a job as an accessibility tester, you could just go on and pick the types of websites you were interested in testing. But the really ironic thing is if you weren't on it right away, like within a couple minutes or less, that if there weren't that many options to pick from during that week or in on that specific day or whatever, then all the options would be gone. And then, and it wasn't just that, it was sometimes because the other major issue was that it was usually, um usually it was like there was a time limit to be able to have like about an hour or maybe a little over an hour to test the website, and then if you weren't done, that it would just be like you'd just be like kicked off or whatever, just say, oh, just log in the hours or something. Then I'd log in, and then it was like, then I'd try to end up testing the site, and it was so inaccessible that it just became extremely frustrating with some of these sites. And it was like, well, why didn't they have, like they shouldn't have had, oh, you only have an hour or an hour and a half to test these couple pages, because sometimes if there are more issues, and then it would be a lot more things to go through on the page because there are a lot of things to evaluate. So actually that's why it didn't really work too well with that whole thing. And then so that's when I really decided that I was just even more passionate about giving feedback for specific websites. So that's um actually worked with the Butler staff, museum staff, and this website development company, this local company, because they really weren't familiar with how to incorporate web accessibility into the website in general, and all these hurdles I had to go through since, well, I was just about the only one on staff who was familiar, and it took a long time. But so because I have a certification in I'm certified professional in accessibility core competencies through the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. So,
I'm about to take that test here in about a
oh,
month.
cool. That's so awesome. Oh,
I just
cool.
I just finished the very last
Oh,
chapter
that's
of that. So,
awesome.
but it is very quickly before Megan chimes in. It's very interesting how even companies that they're out there saying, "Hey, we're here to try to make things accessible." If you just turn back and look at their own tools and what they're doing,
Right. Or
it's
nowhere
not very
near
accessible.
accessible.
Right? They're not accessible, even though they're trying to provide this to other people.
Right,
So,
their platform totally inaccessible, which was horrible. So I was so glad when I was, oh, that didn't last long, and then worked on my writing of my job proposal for the Butler. It's like, oh my gosh, I won't ever support them again. Never. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything like major except for the same thing with just with this challenge with my hearing is that the irony of needing mics, I need big presentations and things like that to be mic'd. And I find that in the art education field, which we are largely in, is that people think they have teacher voices. I hate that term because it means it
Oh,
doesn't matter because a lot of what you can hear is based on pitch and other things. So, always having mics, which are very affordable, you can bring them in, you can plug them in, you can get wheelie systems. For any kind of presentation is essential. And my reverb issue, I will deal with as I need to. But I went to a conference last year. I had attended the same conference the year before and was appalled that we did not have mics. And I'm on the planning committee for this. And I said, hey, we need to have mics at everything. This is not just
oh,
an accessibility issue by request. There are older aging adults who need this. There are people with hearing aids who need this. There are just people who have problems focusing and they need mics. And then I went to that same conference next year and there was a theater presentation and a theater group had said, we do not want mics. And they honored the theater group rather than our needs, and the theater performance was in a carpeted room with large curtains. So I could not hear
oh,
hardly any of the
oh,
presentation.
oh no.
So that frustration is just common. And it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing where people just have this sense of like, I don't know what they if they don't like to hear the voices mic'd. I don't know what the like the fear of being on a microphone is.
Oh,
But we just need to get over it, essentially.
wow. Oh gosh. Oh, let's see. Okay, the next um well, this one I mean, kind of somewhat answered, but I guess if there's anything else with this next question, because it says, if you've participated in an arts experience, a positive arts experience, describe how a little bit about the activity or program and identify how your disability perspective influenced others, whether it was yourself or other visitors throughout the program.
Um, in my experience, most of them are gonna have to do with programming put on by Art Possible Ohio, so I won't go there. The one that I can highlight the most is for those who may have low vision or other visual impairments. I have a screen in the back that says "Those Who Spring of Me." It's actually a title of a feature film that me and my wife made, and luckily enough, we were brought on board with a local woman who had a bakery, the Food for Good Thought, who that provided employment opportunities for those within the autism community. And she wrote a script and got grant funding and was able to secure some money to create an actual narrative melodrama. And my own background and my spouse's background of working with my own disability and with others really helped here because we used two non-professional people as part of the cast to play the main roles. And so the whole film itself was an experimentation in how you can make a small independent film set accessible. The kind of work that you need, the way you need to work around people's personal schedules, the kind of accommodations you might need to provide on set so that you can make sure people feel comfortable and they can perform the roles that you're asking them to do that. And so, like, having my own background and knowing what I need and what I need to work through on a regular basis really helped us be able to pull that off. It took a long time to make the film. It took like 4 years. There were lots of hurdles and lots of roadblocks and stuff that came into play, but like we eventually made it all happen, and it was a very positive experience, I think, for everybody all around. And it really showed how, like, you don't really need a lot of money, but if you take a lot of time and effort to think about the accommodations that someone might need and give them the space to let them have those, you can really accomplish a lot with just a small amount of people.
That's that's really awesome. That's such a great story, Matt. So then, well, another experience that was unforgettable was actually during one of my Ohio State classes because last fall during my master's program, we had to take an art an art class. So I wasn't previously that comfortable with, considering myself as an artist because when I tried specific mediums like, paint and markers and typical mediums like that, I never thought my artwork was really, you know, um, like it wouldn't be as well crafted as as a blind individual compared to the sighted community. But then when I took this Ohio State class, my one professor was so awesome and then learned about so many different types of materials and unique ways that we could create our own artwork, and there's no set standard for creating a specific type of artwork, and it was based heavily on the notion of art making, play, and meaning making. So basically, it's more than just creating a work of art and having an end goal and the result that the artist or other individual wishes to achieve when they're working on an artwork. And we just learned that it could be more fluid and intuitive. So, like for example, in my first assignment, we had to create self-portraits, a series of 9 self-portraits with unique strategies. So I picked marginalization, relocation, and occlusion. And so I used my phone and was able to take the self-portraits, and then I was able to go in on Photoshop and worked with Ira to get the information and to learn more about using Photoshop, and still continually learning new skills with Photoshop. And like one of the first projects I did was actually ended up taking a self-portrait in my office at the Butler, and instead of creating just or instead of the viewer seeing just a typical white cement wall, turned it into an art gallery wall with a Photoshop effect, and holding my cane. So instead of typical white cane, ended up turning it into a dragon staff, like representing the power and the confidence as a like emerging blind visual artist, and just that anything is possible when you can combine your passions and fields of interest in helping others. So that was really unforgettable experience, and that's what really pushed me in wanting to do more artwork and having that confidence from my, professors and other fellow students. So
I don't think I have anything to contribute to this question unless so Matt and Joy, you're welcome to talk more, or we can move on to the next one. Because of my role and my passion for disability advocacy and the accessibility to the arts, I'm constantly advocating. So I don't think I can pull out one single experience um, that was so transformative. I can't like pinpoint it in any way.
no problem. Let's see. So we can go, we'll go to the last question then, which says, what does DEAI, diversity, equity, accessibility, um,
Inclusion.
accessibility and inclusion mean to you? And oh, and how does an open line of communication impact the disability and non-disability community?
That is a very big question to answer on the fly, not being able to be prepared. One thing that I think I could say is that I think the addition of the word access is really important there because um, I I think that any of those terms that you're using that make up that acronym, access is the key feature. So it's access to the conversation. It's access to the tools that you might need. It's access to the participation in the programming. I think the act providing access is like the most important part of those, and that's the biggest part of that the idea that really stands out to me is that like I want to do everything possible to provide access to all people regardless, right? It doesn't matter. All people should have access. That's just how it should be. That's where we are now today.
Right, definitely. That's for sure. That's huge right now in the 21st century, how technology is just growing in and it's intensifying so rapidly. It's speeding up with the growth and development and everything. It's paramount to success. So so for me, I believe in the significance of disability justice. So at the forefront, access is always key in having the capacity for disabled and non-disabled individuals to work simultaneously and be successful and be able to shatter the barriers, the invisible and visible barriers that we can learn to eliminate. But disability justice also includes, since we as a disability community make up the largest minority group in the world, approximately 1 billion, there are so many other minority communities and issues that lie in the areas of disability justice, such as um, with the environment and ableism and just receiving that positive opportunity and learning and growing from unique voices and perspectives, and not only um, the fact of whiteness with just a Western European society, but learning from other minority groups and religion and gender and ethnicity. So there's so much more that can be gained when we embrace this philosophy and practice to live more more harmoniously in the world.
I think that was incredibly beautiful, Joy, and I think you made a lot of wonderful points, and I agree with every single one of them. And I appreciate your perspective. This question is so good, and it's quite large. I agree with you, Matt. But one thing that I encounter so often working with partners that we work a lot with a lot of partners to present programs. Um, and it's so often in those beginning conversations that people say to me, I don't know how to say this, or I don't know if this is the right words when they're talking about disability. And I just say, it's okay. Just say what you're trying to say, and I will let you know if there's a different way we could potentially say it, but I'd rather you say it than not say it. And I think this fear of the word disability or identifying different types of disability or a fear of labeling people is a huge blockade in us making any progress. Fear of word and language increases fear of the actual person, and it is the person that we are trying to create access for. So I think the more we are talking about it, the more we're communicating about it, whether that's in a visual way or through language or with a written word or any other way to communicate, the better to reduce taboo and stigma around the concept disability. And I actually think, Joy, what you're saying about intersectionality is so incredibly important when we're thinking about disability, because I find that people get really antsy when I start talking about ableism. But what has helped is if I say, and I remind folks that ableism is intrinsically tied to white supremacy, and we're thinking about why people are othered and they're not included, and how much that has to do with whiteness. um, that is a way for people to kind of explore it, because people have become more comfortable exploring white supremacy as of late. I think we have a whole long way to go because of that language barrier that is still very prevalent. Um, but so I really love the fact that you included a question around communication, and maybe, communication can, what kind of communication you meant. I'm sure we can all interpret that in different ways, but I just think it's something that we should be asking everybody. This question should be asked to everybody.
Exactly. Well, those were all my questions. I mean, if there's anything else, but so
Yeah, Matt, do you have anything
do you
you
have
wanted to
anything else?
add today, or any questions you wanted to bring to the table? We have about 5 minutes, I think,
Yeah.
here.
I
Yeah.
mean, since you're actively doing this, Joy, I think it might be good to just add a little bit at the end here about, what if people want to get more involved
Mhm.
in the support of making sure that there are digitally accessible tools? What are the ways they can find out more about it? What are the ways we can find the organizations that out there? Because I find it out, a lot of time, unless you're working with an organization, it's really difficult to find out, like, okay, what is the IAAP? Like, what are these certifications? What do they do? What are the laws that affect all the different places, right? All the different things that we should be doing. What are the different guides that are out there? What are the different tools, right? There's just this whole giant world that is out there. And I think specifically, since we're with our Possible Ohio around art, what are the things that people should know about, like, when it comes to art and creative exploration? What can be of the most benefit for people to know about? What resources exist?
Right there. I mean, there are so many things. Like, let's see, like, um, well, there are a lot of, you know, well, arts organizations. Besides Art Possible Ohio, there's always um, there's Ohio, right, Arts Council, let's see, Ohio Museum Association, the American Alliance of Museums. They're rapidly changing and innovating with their whole aspect, with all of their elements within accreditation for museums and everything. They're changing to make all of the content and everything DEAI inclusive for the past couple years. And then there's always because if anyone wants to learn more, it's the International Association of Accessibility Professionals is with the organization that I got my certificate from. And then the Q University, it's DEQUE. It's an organization where I took all of my classes to receive my certification. Oh, and I should also mention about Global Accessibility Awareness Day, because I think if you just type it in a Google search, it'll come up either GAAD or Global Accessibility Awareness Day, because this year was the 13th annual Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and it was created by someone from LA. He's blind, and no, he's French Canadian, and this other guy who I think he's from LA. This person who wrote this one accessibility blogger, he was just interested in accessibility. He's not disabled himself, but person who spearheaded it was Jennison. It's JENNISSION, I think. And so he was the one who really got it started with making the making web accessibility more prevalent and digital accessibility with a worldwide approach. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
sure.
I would say that the Kennedy Center for the Arts has a whole sector dedicated to accessibility in the arts, and you can become a member, and that opens you onto that allows you to access an archive of resources, many of them regarding accessibility in the arts, and then attend webinars and things like that. And then they have a wonderful conference every year, an annual conference, which cost-wise, not always accessible. So I will say that. Time and resource-wise, maybe perhaps not as accessible, although they do have hybrid sessions. But it brings together arts leaders from all across the United States, and some from even as far as Ireland, and some other countries. So there is a bit of an international presence. They're very Canada heavy, which makes sense. And these are different arts leaders from all over, institutions from all over, who are just geeking out about accessibility, and they're great resources. And it's a great place to have one-on-one conversations with people to really talk more about how did you do that, and how did you get the funding to do that, and you know, those questions that you can't always ask in these larger webinars or find on web pages and things like that. So I would say, and I know Joy and Matt would agree, talking to people who are doing the work or who have disabilities is also a wonderful resource in terms of getting the information that you might need. So.
Right, that's great, Megan. I'm glad you brought the Kennedy Center up. I forgot about them, right? I'm a member of that organization too. I forgot about them.
Well, I think that is all we have time for today. I want to thank you, Matt and Joy, for being here, and Joy for coming up with this idea and putting it together. I think this is actually really wonderful, and I'm hoping maybe we can do this again next year, and bring a few more great minds together, because we could have talked about a whole lot of other stuff. And I thought about the topic of AI, and I'm not going to bring it up right now. But anyway, like there's a whole different lot of different ways this conversation could go that would be equally as fascinating. But this is a really wonderful introductory opportunity to talk about this. I will say Joy is a wonderful resource. If you ever wanted to reach out to Joy at the Butler, I'm sure your email address is on the website. Is that correct, Joy?
Right, it is. Yes. And
And
my
then
office number.
and Matt is also a wonderful advocate, and you could reach out to me at Art Possible Ohio, and I can connect you to Matt with his permission. So, thank you both for being here today, and I think that's where we will end it. But that's yeah, thanks everyone, and I'm gonna stop the recording now. I can always stop.